I'm Francine. Have you ever felt like getting your child to obey your request the first time was an uphill battle? Well, you're in the right place today. You know, a child has to be trained in every area of life. They have different personalities for sure. Some are more quickly aligned to being responsive positively. Some may be a little more inclined to not. But when it comes to your child being obedient or responding to your request on the first round, that is something that you, the parent, have to first decide. If you want your child to be responsive to your request the first time, then as a parent, I want to encourage you first, make that your intention. And as you make that your intention, then begin to put tools in place. So it's like, oh, Johnny, pick up your shoes. And Johnny doesn't respond. And so it's like, well, pick up your shoes. So what you want to do is when you say it the first time and the child doesn't pick up their shoes, you want to engage them, get their eyes, get their attention. I said, pick up your shoes and I need you to do it now. So in other words, you're getting their attention. You're letting them know this is the way you do this. Now, mind you, it takes exercise at the gym to be consistent with a child, but it will produce phenomenal results. And so it also helps to realize that in this process of getting them to respond the first time, you might also want to test yourself to see where your children are. So it's like if it's like once they don't obey, two they don't obey, and then three you scream, and then when you scream or you yell or you get upset, then they move, then that just tells you they're trained to move when you yell. But that is changeable. That is changeable. So in other words, establishing that the movement the first time is what needs to be done and not delaying it two or three times then screaming, because then they'll be trained to the scream or you yelling or raising your voice, which takes a lot of your energy, and moves your mind into a more intense focus. And again, we want to be working on being emotionally healthy and empowered as parents with children as well. So again, working on the first time. First, as a parent, recognize that's something you want to establish. Depending on the age of your children, if they're very young, just say between 2 and 6 or 8, you can, let's say between 2 and 6. You have to work on establishing that because they're very young, and working on that little by little. If they're between 6 and 12, they're already in a certain pattern, but the pattern can change when you let them know there's a new way of doing things in the home. So it's like when you make a request, they're to respond. If they don't respond after you talk to them, share with them, look them in their eyes, then that's when you can start working on consequence. So consequence might be not getting a dessert or not looking at their games, depending on your home, your family, what you allow. In other words, it's causing them as well as you, because remember, parents are in the first chair. Parents are the one that's in the position of teaching and training, instructing, guiding, and correcting. That's a parent job. And it is a full-time job because human beings, they need time and attention all the time, until they are adults, leave your home. But still, so if you want to work on your child being obedient the first time, that is something you have to intentionally decide. You may decide, okay, they have to be responsive by the second time. Whatever it is you decide, you have to be consistent and patient and looking them in their eyes so that they can see when you tell them and they don't respond, you get their eyes, get their focus. It's like, this is what I requested of you. This is what you need to do. And I'm expecting you to do so. So everything else is going to pause until you fulfill this request. Whatever that quest may be, whether it's homework or putting away shoes or whatever age appropriate task it may be. And so I'm going to encourage you with that, to be intentional about recognizing if you want your child to obey you the first time, then you have to put that in place. First, to decide it. Why decide? Because deciding means you're going to have to come behind it and be consistent. And so that takes practice. And if you go, okay, well, you can tolerate a second time. Well, then it's still the same thing. You have to be consistent. And also, even if your children are older, like between 8 and 12, and you haven't established that and they just obey you whenever they felt like it, then you having that conversation to say it's important that we do things differently, because parents are the first people that children learn to obey and respond, but they by far are not the only people. There's school, there's teachers, there's job, all the things. And children can be responsive and obey in school and those places because they have boundaries or things in place and consequence. But in the home, it's so cool to have it because it actually will make it easier for them to naturally follow suit with the guidance and the structures that are in place in other environments. So again, if getting your child to obey on your first request, it takes intention. That you have to decide that's what you want. Because first you're deciding that's what you want so that you can back up the very thing that you want to happen. Remember, you'll hear me say this over and over. Parents are in the first chair. The teachers, instructors, the guiders, the correctors. Children need it, even though children give you pushback. They don't know what they need. That's why it's a parent's job to apply to their lives what they need and what's beneficial to them. So, more tips are coming. If you've tried something that was helpful to you, feel free to share. Until we meet again.